The galaxy had once been a serene expanse, a web of interconnected worlds ruled by ancient civilizations with powerful technology and the wisdom of millennia. Then came the invaders, the Zalreks, a relentless, hive-minded species of conquerors who swept across star systems, reducing entire civilizations to ash. The Zalreks knew no mercy, and the universe was beginning to bow to their will. Every race, every empire, collapsed one by one under their pressure. Yet there was one world untouched by their firestorm: Earth. To the Zalreks, humanity was little more than a curiosity. Primitive, divided, and with no significant advancements in space travel, they saw Earth as nothing more than a blip on their path to domination. The humans' greatest strength, however, was their underestimation. While they were weak compared to the Zalreks, humans had something the invaders didn't: a burning will to survive. The galaxy trembled as the Zalreks pushed toward Earth, certain that this would be just another easy conquest. But what the invaders didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. In secret, hidden beneath the shadows of government bunkers and private corporations, scientists, soldiers, and strategists had been working tirelessly to reverse-engineer alien technologies, develop weapons of mass destruction, and unlock the hidden potential of the human race. This secret project, codenamed Vanguard, was humanity's last hope. It had been started in response to the early reports of the Zalreks' conquests and the devastating efficiency of their war machines. The project was designed to create a new breed of human, a human who could stand toe-to-toe with the galaxy's greatest warriors. For years, humanity had honed its ability to fight back. Armed with stolen Zalreks tech, they had constructed fleets in the shadows of Earth's orbit and created genetically enhanced soldiers with abilities that defied imagination. The day had come when the first generation of these soldiers, known as Vanguards, would take their place on the front lines. In the war room beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean, the United Earth Command was in chaos. Their sensors had just picked up the Zalreks fleet on the edge of Earth's solar system, and the countdown had begun. Time was running out. Admiral Vanessa Phoenix, the commander of Earth's last line of defense, paced back and forth before a giant holographic display of the solar system. The red blips representing the Zalreks fleet grew ever larger. A storm of anxious voices echoed through the command center, but Vanessa's gaze was fixed on the growing threat. The enemy was already here, and Earth's defenses were inadequate to fend them off. "Where are the Vanguards?" she demanded, her voice a steady command above the growing panic. The head scientist, Dr. Evelyn Shaw, turned toward the Admiral. She was a woman with sharp features and eyes that had seen too many horrors in her life. Her voice was steady, though she carried the weight of 100 sleepless nights. "We're ready, but the first wave is untested. There's no guarantee they'll be able to hold their ground against a fleet of this size." Vanessa's gaze softened for a moment as she considered the implications. If the Vanguards failed, it would mean the end of Earth's fight before it had even begun. Humanity had been in the dark for so long, outmatched, outclassed, and now they had to stand tall. She wasn't about to let Earth fall without giving everything they had. "Prepare them," Vanessa ordered. "We have no other choice." As the Vanguards, human warriors enhanced with the strength of alien technology, stepped into the launch pods, their bodies humbling before the massive machinery that would send them into the heart of battle, the fate of humanity rested in their hands. These were no ordinary soldiers. Enhanced by cybernetic implants, experimental gene therapies, and years of training with the best Earth had to offer, they were humanity's ultimate weapon. Their enhancements made them stronger, faster, smarter, and more deadly than any human force ever before. Admiral Phoenix gave one final look to the Vanguards as they ascended into the launch pods. She didn't know if they would survive the battle that awaited them, but she did know one thing: humanity was done hiding in the shadows. And so, the first shots in the fight for Earth's survival were fired, not by fleets or weapons of mass destruction, but by a new breed of human warriors determined to show the galaxy that the heart of humanity was far more resilient than anyone had imagined. As the Vanguards hurtled toward the vast Zalreks armada, the fate of the human race hung in the balance. Earth's final stand had begun, and no one would ever underestimate humanity again. The first wave of Vanguards cut through the stars with military precision, descending toward the Zalrex fleet like a storm of vengeance. The launch pods, equipped with experimental thrusters and reinforced armor, streaked across the black void of space, cutting through the darkness toward their target. The Zalrex, oblivious to the coming assault, continued their advance, their massive ships casting long shadows across the galaxy's edge. Commander Julian Hawks Kepler, one of the first Vanguards to leave Earth's orbit, gripped the controls of his pod with steely determination. His enhanced vision allowed him to track the enemy ships as they came into range. The battle was about to commence, and he was ready. He had spent years training for this moment, years becoming something more than human, more than just a soldier. The pod's AI voice rang in his ears, a steady reminder of his mission. Approaching target in 30 seconds, Commander Kepler. Kepler didn't respond. His mind was focused on the mission ahead, his pulse steady despite the uncertainty. The Vanguards were the human race's best hope, but even they were not immune to the vast power of the Zalrex war machine. The first wave was an untested strategy, an attempt to break through the enemy lines with force and precision. It was risky, but it was all they had. At the same time, Earth's defense fleet readied for its own battle. The combined forces of humanity's militaries, now united under the banner of the United Earth Command, prepared to fight the Zalrex with everything they had. But their fleet was far outmatched by the Zalrex's sheer numbers and devastating firepower. It would be up to the Vanguards to buy them time. The Vanguard's launch pods slammed into the Zalrex armada with explosive force. A series of detonations erupted across the enemy fleet as the pods deployed their high-powered weaponry and advanced shield technology. Kepler's pod disintegrated upon impact with a Zalrex warship, but it had done its job. The enemy vessel was disabled, its defensive systems torn apart by the surprise attack. Kepler's heart raced as his pod systems indicated a successful strike. But then, a jarring voice came over his comms. "This is Valiant Leader. We're taking heavy fire. Vanguards fall back." The message was short, but the implications were clear. The Zalrex had adapted faster than expected. Their ships, far from being unprepared for the human assault, had been lying in wait, hiding cloaked ships that were virtually invisible to human technology. The first wave of Vanguards was encountering far more resistance than they had anticipated. The Zalrex, it seemed, had been studying humanity as much as humanity had studied them. Kepler's pod rocketed through the debris of destroyed ships, narrowly avoiding incoming fire. His mind raced with strategies. They had walked straight into an ambush. "Keep pushing forward," he barked to his team. "We can't turn back now." The Vanguards were trained for this. Every setback, every unexpected challenge was part of their preparation. They had been designed to survive in situations like this, to adapt and to overcome. Kepler's team regrouped, returning fire with advanced plasma cannons, slicing through the Zalrex hulls with ruthless precision. But the battle was far from one-sided. The Zalrex retaliated with deadly force, launching counterattacks with cloaked ships, reinforcements from hidden sectors of the fleet, and devastating energy weapons that disintegrated whole sections of space. One by one, the Vanguard pods began to fall. Explosions filled the air as human lives were lost in the blink of an eye. The Zalrex had not underestimated them. They had planned for this moment all along. Kepler's heart clenched as the last of his comrades' pods was destroyed in a fiery explosion. He was now the only Vanguard left, the last hope for his planet. Alone in the vast expanse of space, he knew the fight had only just begun. The Zalrex might have shown their hand, but they had no idea who they were dealing with. He engaged his pod's afterburners, pushing his ship to its limits as he made a desperate dash for the Zalrex flagship, a massive and menacing vessel that loomed ahead. It was his only chance to strike at the heart of their fleet. If he could disable their command center, it could buy the Earth's forces enough time to regroup. But as Kepler approached, a chilling realization set in. The Zalrex had anticipated the Vanguard's desperation. A deadly trap was waiting for him. The enemy flagship's weapons powered up, and Kepler's pod was engulfed by a devastating energy beam that scorched the stars themselves. As the shockwave rocked his pod, Kepler barely held on. His body was battered, and the systems were failing, but his resolve remained unbroken. He wasn't going to let this be the end. Not while humanity still had a chance. "Commander Kepler, this is Earth Command," a voice crackled through the static. "We are sending reinforcements. Hold your position. We will not let you fall." Kepler's eyes narrowed. The reinforcements were coming. Humanity was not done yet. In the darkness of space, amid the carnage, the first human victory was beginning to take shape. And with it, the rise of the human vanguard had truly begun. The battle raged on, with the remnants of the Vanguard force desperately clinging to survival. But for Commander Julian Kepler, it wasn't enough to simply survive. Earth's reinforcements were on their way, but the Zolrex had already shown that they could adapt to any strategy, and time was running out. With his pod systems severely damaged, Kepler struggled to maintain control. His dashboard flickered erratically, showing signs of the catastrophic damage sustained during the assault on the Zolrex flagship. He could feel the heat rising from the hull of his pod, his muscles strained as he fought to keep the ship in one piece. In the distance, the Zolrex flagship loomed larger, its massive form blotting out the stars. Kepler knew he had to act fast. The reinforcements coming from Earth wouldn't arrive in time if the Zolrex were allowed to fully mobilize their fleet. "Kepler, do you copy?" The voice of Admiral Vanessa Phoenix crackled over his comms, filled with urgency. "I copy, Admiral," Kepler replied through gritted teeth. His voice was strained, but there was no hint of fear, only determination. "You've done your part, Commander. Fall back. We'll send a full strike team to take down the flagship." Kepler's eyes narrowed as he scanned the battlefield. The Zolrex had suffered losses, but their forces were still formidable. Their fleet was closing in on Earth's defenses, and the Zolrex flagship was still operational, ready to bring the full weight of their power down on humanity. He couldn't afford to pull back. "Not yet." "Negative, Admiral," Kepler responded, his voice resolute. "I'm going after the flagship. I have one shot left. I'll take them down myself." The Admiral hesitated, but Kepler didn't give her a chance to argue. He engaged the last of his pod's boosters, plunging toward the massive Zolrex vessel with laser focus. His course was set, and there would be no turning back. The Zolrex flagship's weapon systems powered up, ready to destroy Kepler's lone pod before it could reach its target. But Kepler was already inside the Zolrex's blind spot, too close for their cloaked defense systems to react in time. As he closed in, he activated the pod's remaining payload, an experimental EMP bomb designed to disable the flagship's control systems. In a blinding flash, Kepler's pod slammed into the Zolrex flagship's hull, the force of the impact sending shockwaves through space. The EMP bomb detonated with a deafening pulse, scrambling the flagship's systems and temporarily rendering it defenseless. But Kepler had no time to savor his success. With his pod systems in overload and his life support failing, he ejected from the damaged ship and activated the emergency thrusters on his suit. The heat of the explosion had left him disoriented, but his mind remained sharp. He floated in space, surrounded by the wreckage of both the Zolrex flagship and his own pod, with the enemy fleet still in pursuit. Then, as if answering his silent prayer, Earth's reinforcements arrived. The first wave of Earth's defense fleet tore through the space in a blaze of fire. The massive warships, equipped with reverse-engineered Zolrex technology and human ingenuity, opened fire on the Zolrex fleet with devastating force. Plasma cannons and missile volleys rained down on the invaders, punching through their defenses. Kepler's heart pounded in his chest as he saw the tide begin to shift. The Zolrex flagship was disabled, its crew scrambling to regain control. The battle had turned in humanity's favor. Earth's forces had arrived, and they weren't pulling any punches. As the reinforcements pressed the attack, the Zolrex began to retreat. Their once immense fleet was now in disarray, struggling to organize against the relentless assault. Humanity's first victory had come at a high price, but it was a victory nonetheless. And Kepler knew it was only the beginning. Amidst the chaos, Admiral Phoenix's voice came through again. "Kepler, fall back to the fleet. You've earned your rest." Kepler's suit's communication system buzzed as he activated his thrusters to make his way toward the Earth fleet. His body was battered and exhausted, but the fire in his eyes had not dimmed. As he soared through space, a thought echoed in his mind. Earth had just become a force to be reckoned with. The battle had only been one chapter of a much larger war. And with the rise of humanity's vanguard warriors, the galaxy would soon learn that underestimating Earth was the biggest mistake the Zolrex could ever make. As the dust settled over the wreckage of the Zolrex flagship, the Earth fleet began to regroup. Commander Kepler returned to the flagship of the United Earth Command, his body weary from the brutal battle. The victory was hard-won, but it had come at a high cost. The once proud Zolrex fleet had suffered significant losses, but the invaders were far from defeated. They would return, stronger and more relentless than ever. Kepler, though exhausted, knew that Earth's war was only beginning. The Zolrex had sent a clear message. Humanity was not the only threat in the galaxy. There were other ancient powers, dark forces that had long been watching, waiting for their chance to strike. And the Zolrex, despite their overwhelming might, were merely one cog in the wheel of galactic domination. Admiral Vanessa Phoenix stood before the war room's holographic display, her face grim. She was surrounded by her closest officers, each one deep in thought. The silence was thick with uncertainty. The victory over the Zolrex flagship had been a monumental achievement, but the war was far from over. Earth's defenses were strong, but there was no telling what lay beyond the edges of known space. "Commander Kepler," Phoenix began, her voice steady but full of unspoken tension. "I've received a transmission from the Council of Systems. They've detected unusual activity near the galactic core. We don't know what it is yet, but it's not Zolrex." Kepler's brow furrowed. The galactic core was home to the most ancient and powerful civilizations in the galaxy. If something or someone was disturbing the balance there, it could signal the arrival of a new enemy, one beyond anything humanity had ever faced. "Do we have a lead on what it could be?" Kepler asked, his voice filled with resolve. The Admiral hesitated for a moment before answering. "We don't know, but the activity is growing stronger. It could be a warlord, a faction, or even an ancient species. The Council fears that we may be facing something far older and more dangerous than the Zolrex." The thought sent a chill down Kepler's spine. If an ancient species was stirring, it could mean the end of everything humanity had fought for. The Zolrex were powerful, yes, but they were still a known quantity. But the idea of an unknown, ancient threat lurking in the depths of space made the Zolrex seem like small fry in comparison. "We need to investigate," Kepler said, stepping forward with determination. "We can't let whatever it is catch us off guard. If we wait, it might be too late." Admiral Phoenix nodded, her expression hardening. "I agree. We'll send a reconnaissance team. You'll lead it." Kepler was already preparing his gear before Phoenix had finished speaking. He didn't need to be told twice. There was no time to waste. If humanity's last line of defense was to stand strong, they would need to know what they were up against. Days later, Kepler's team of elite vanguards boarded a sleek, modified cruiser designed for deep space reconnaissance. The ship was a marvel of human engineering, equipped with advanced stealth capabilities, enhanced shields, and weaponry capable of taking on any threat short of a full-scale invasion. The team's mission was clear: investigate the unusual energy readings coming from the galactic core and report back. As the ship slipped into the dark abyss of deep space, Kepler felt a familiar unease settle in his gut. The emptiness of the void was oppressive, like a weight pressing down on his very soul. His enhanced senses picked up every subtle shift in the ship's systems, every low hum of the engines as they traversed the cold expanse. For hours, the crew moved in silence, their minds focused on the task at hand. But it wasn't long before they encountered something. It appeared on their sensors as a blip, a faint pulse of energy that flickered in and out of existence. It was like nothing Kepler had ever seen before, and the readings didn't match anything in Earth's database. This was no ordinary phenomenon. "Captain," Kepler said, his voice calm but firm. "We've got something. Slow the ship down." The captain acknowledged the order, and the ship's engines powered down, bringing them to a silent drift. Kepler studied the readings on the holographic display. The energy pulse was growing stronger, pulsing in a rhythm that seemed almost deliberate. It was a signal, and it was calling them closer. "Scan for any sign of life," Kepler ordered, his pulse quickening. Anything that could be hiding behind this energy signature. The sensors pulsed again, and the ship's systems detected a faint, ancient signal emanating from an uncharted region of space. The signal wasn't human, and it wasn't Zolrex either. It was something older, something buried deep within the galaxy's forgotten history. "Captain, this isn't good. Whatever's sending this signal, it's been lying dormant for a long time. And it's waking up." Kepler's words sent a ripple of unease through the crew. The ancient civilizations that once dominated the galaxy had long since vanished, their ruins scattered across forgotten star systems. What if this signal was the remnant of one such civilization, an enemy whose power had been erased from history? Before anyone could respond, the ship's alarms blared to life. A massive object, dark and ominous, materialized from the darkness. It was a ship, an ancient vessel that looked like nothing Kepler had ever seen. Its surface was covered in strange, shifting symbols that pulsed with the same rhythm as the energy signature they had detected. "We're not alone," Kepler muttered, his hand resting on the control panel as the ancient ship's massive shadow loomed over them. The Vanguards prepared for what was to come, knowing that whatever awaited them in the depths of the galaxy could be more dangerous than the Zolrex ever had been. The ancient ship hovered ominously in the depths of space, its massive silhouette blocking out the stars. Kepler's team stood in tense silence on the bridge of their reconnaissance vessel, the hum of the ship's engines barely audible over the mounting tension. The strange symbols on the surface of the vessel seemed to pulse in rhythm with the energy signature they had detected, as though the ship itself was alive, breathing, waiting. Kepler stood at the command station, his enhanced senses sharpened to their limits. He could feel the ship's eerie presence, a weight in the atmosphere that pressed down on him, as if the ancient vessel was watching them. His fingers hovered over the control panel, ready to react at a moment's notice. "Captain," Kepler said, his voice steady despite the chill creeping up his spine. "We need to know who or what is aboard that ship. Prepare to board. We need answers." The captain of the reconnaissance ship, Lieutenant Kara Voss, gave a sharp nod, though her face was tense. "Understood. Deploying boarding pods now." The ship's launch bay doors hissed open, and the Vanguards filed into their boarding pods, each one silent, their minds focused on the mission. Kepler led the charge, his mind running through every possible scenario. This wasn't just a military operation, it was a reconnaissance mission that could change the course of humanity's future. What if this ship belonged to an ancient enemy, one that had been dormant for eons? What if it was a weapon, waiting for the right moment to strike? As the pods ejected from the reconnaissance vessel, they plunged toward the surface of the ancient ship. The journey was swift, but the Vanguards felt every second of the descent, the gravity of their task weighing heavily on them. Moments later, they docked with the ancient ship, the hiss of their magnetic clamps connecting them to its hull. Kepler's pod doors opened with a low hiss, and he stepped out onto the darkened surface of the ship, his boots making a soft thud against the cold metal beneath him. The air was thick with a strange, stale atmosphere. The ship's interior was completely dark, save for a faint, eerie glow emanating from the walls themselves. Strange symbols, similar to the ones on the ship's exterior, were etched into every surface, their meaning unknown but unmistakably ancient. "Stay sharp," Kepler ordered, his voice low and controlled. His team spread out, weapons raised, as they moved through the eerie, alien corridors. The ship was vast, far larger than any human vessel, and its design was unlike anything they had ever encountered. It was clear that this ship had not been built by any known species, human or Zolrex. Suddenly, the silence was broken by a soft hum, and the walls around them seemed to come alive. The symbols began to glow brighter, and the ship's interior seemed to respond to their presence, as if it was aware of their intrusion. "Something's happening," Lieutenant Voss muttered. This place, it's reacting to us. Kepler nodded, his eyes scanning the surroundings. He could feel the ship's pulse now, a low, rhythmic beat that seemed to vibrate through his very bones. It wasn't just an energy signature, it was a living presence, as though the ship itself was sentient. He didn't know if this was a ship, a weapon, or something else entirely. As they continued deeper into the ship's bowels, the team encountered what appeared to be a control room, ancient and worn, but still operational. The central console was covered in the same strange symbols, and a faint blue light flickered across the control panels. Kepler stepped forward, his fingers hovering over the console. "Let's see what we're dealing with." He activated the controls, and a holographic display flickered to life in front of him. The image that appeared was a map, an ancient star map, covering vast sectors of space far beyond humanity's reach. The map pulsed with the same rhythm as the energy readings they had detected, as if guiding them to a specific point in the galaxy. "What is this?" Voss asked, her voice tinged with awe. Kepler studied the map closely. There was no mistake. This was no ordinary map. It was a map of ancient civilizations, long extinct. The symbols represented stars and planets that no one in the galaxy had ever seen, their locations lost to time. But there was one particular sector that drew Kepler's attention, a place marked with a pulsing red symbol, surrounded by a web of glowing lines. That's the Galactic core," Kepler said, his voice barely a whisper. The map zoomed in, centering on the red symbol. It was located near the heart of the galaxy, where no human had ventured, where no one had dared to go. And at the center of that symbol, there was something that made Kepler's blood run cold. A massive, unknown object was marked there, larger than any known planet or star. It was not just a structure, it was something far more ancient, far more dangerous. "This isn't just a ship," Kepler said, his voice grim. "This is a beacon, and it's calling something. Something powerful. Something older than even the Zolrex." Suddenly, the hum in the ship grew louder, vibrating through the walls. The symbols on the console flared brightly, and a voice, ancient and unintelligible, echoed through the chamber. Kepler's heart raced. He could feel the presence of something beyond their understanding, something that had been waiting for centuries to awaken. The ship wasn't just an artifact, it was a vessel of power, a key to something far greater. And it was now calling out to the galaxy. "We need to get back to the ship. Now," Kepler ordered, his voice tight with urgency. "Whatever this is, it's too dangerous to let it awaken." But as they turned to leave, the walls of the ship began to tremble, and the lights flickered once more. The entire ship was coming to life. And from the depths of the darkness, something stirred. The entire ship seemed to shudder as the ancient vessel's systems powered up, its hum vibrating the very walls. Kepler's pulse quickened. Something was awakening deep within the heart of this forgotten relic, and whatever it wasn't friendly. "Move out," Kepler barked, his voice sharp and commanding as the Vanguard scrambled to exit the control room. The walls around them seemed to pulse with energy, the strange symbols glowing brighter as though reacting to their presence. The ship was alive, responding to them in a way that sent a chill through his bones. The corridors, once silent and still, were now filled with a low hum, and the temperature seemed to drop. The team moved quickly, their boots pounding against the metal floors as they retraced their steps toward the boarding pods. But as they reached a junction, the air around them seemed to distort, and a low growl filled the darkness. Kepler's heart skipped a beat. "Weapons ready," he commanded, his voice low. Suddenly, a massive shape emerged from the shadows, a creature, its form barely visible in the flickering light. It was humanoid in shape, but its features were unlike anything Kepler had seen before. Its skin was a deep, inky black, and its eyes glowed with an eerie blue light, almost like the symbols on the walls. The creature's body rippled with unnatural energy, and Kepler could feel its presence before he even saw it. It wasn't alive in the way they understood life. This being was something older, something that defied their comprehension. "Move," Kepler shouted, but before anyone could react, the creature lunged. The vanguards fired their weapons, but their shots seemed to have little effect on the creature, which moved with terrifying speed. It was as if the creature was one with the ship itself, an extension of its ancient, living machinery. Kepler barely managed to dodge the creature's claws, which ripped through the air with lethal precision. "Fall back," Kepler ordered, his voice hoarse with urgency. The Vanguards regrouped, moving toward the nearest escape hatch. But the creature was relentless, and its glowing eyes locked onto Kepler with unyielding focus. "This thing's not going to let us leave," Lieutenant Voss said, her breath heavy as she fired another round. But the creature didn't flinch. It simply absorbed the attack, as if the energy had no effect on its form. "We need to get to the pods, now," Kepler urged, firing his own weapon in a futile attempt to stop the creature's advance. As they ran, the ship seemed to close in on them, the walls shifting and contorting as though the very structure of the vessel was reacting to the creature's presence. The team raced through the darkened corridors, but the creature was faster, its shadow looming just behind them. When they finally reached the docking bay, Kepler saw that the boarding pods had been compromised. The once clear path was now blocked by a series of glowing, tendril-like appendages that snaked out from the walls, sealing off any escape route. Kepler slammed his fist into the control panel, but nothing happened. The ship was locking them in, forcing them to confront whatever horrors lurked within its depths. "We're not getting out this way," Kepler muttered, scanning the room for another escape. But his eyes widened as he saw the dark shape of the creature emerging from the shadows, its glowing eyes fixed on him. "This is it," Lieutenant Voss said, her voice tight with fear. "We've fought the Zolrex, but this is something else." Kepler's mind raced. He had fought countless battles, had led humanity's forces against overwhelming odds, but this was unlike anything he'd ever faced. The creature was not just a predator, it was part of something far greater, something that had been lying dormant for millennia. The ship, the creature, the signals, they were all connected. And if they didn't find a way out, humanity's greatest threat wouldn't be the Zolrex, it would be this ancient force, the one that had been waiting in the shadows for eons. "We need to fight back," Kepler said, his voice hardening. "The ship's systems, whatever's keeping us trapped here, it's all connected. We have to find the control center." "Where?" Voss asked, desperation creeping into her voice. Kepler looked around, his mind racing. There was one place they hadn't explored yet, an unknown section deep within the heart of the ship. If they could reach it, they might have a chance to shut down whatever was controlling the ship. But the path was treacherous, and they had no idea what awaited them there. "We go deeper into the ship," Kepler said, determination in his voice. "We'll find the core and shut it down. We have no choice." With the creature hot on their heels, the team pressed forward, pushing through the ship's darkened halls, their weapons drawn, every step filled with the weight of what was at stake. They would either stop this nightmare now, or they would become its next victims. The air grew colder as they descended deeper into the ship. The walls seemed to warp and twist around them, and the eerie symbols continued to glow, pulsing with an unnatural energy. The further they went, the more the ship seemed to come alive, as though it was awakening from a long slumber. And then they found it, a massive chamber, its walls lined with pulsating energy conduits. At the center of the room stood an enormous, alien control console, surrounded by swirling tendrils of light. This was the heart of the ship, the core. But the creature wasn't far behind. Kepler could hear its footsteps echoing in the distance, growing louder with every passing second. "We don't have much time," Kepler said, stepping forward. "We need to shut this thing down before it's too late." As they moved toward the core, the room seemed to tremble, and the air crackled with a low hum. The ship was alive, and it wasn't going down without a fight. The core room was a living nightmare. The walls, now pulsating with raw energy, seemed to breathe with an eerie rhythm, as though the ancient ship itself had a heartbeat. Kepler's breath came in shallow gasps, his mind racing as he sprinted toward the massive console at the center of the chamber. Every step seemed to shake the very ground beneath him, as though the ship was preparing to fight back. Behind them, the creature's growls grew louder, its presence drawing closer with every passing moment. It was relentless, and its pursuit seemed almost methodical. Kepler knew that time was running out. "We don't have much time," Lieutenant Voss shouted, her voice sharp with urgency. "Kepler, what do we do?" Kepler didn't answer immediately. His eyes were locked on the control console. The alien technology before him was like nothing humanity had ever encountered. It was ancient, its structure a blend of organic and mechanical components, and it seemed to pulse with life. He could feel its power radiating from the core, a force far beyond anything Earth's technology could comprehend. "This is the heart of the ship," Kepler said, his voice grim. "Whatever this creature is, it's connected to this system. If we can destroy the core, we might be able to shut the ship down." "Destroy it?" Voss's voice was filled with disbelief.
How?
"We don't know how this thing works." Kepler turned to face her, his eyes hard with resolve. "We don't have a choice. If we don't, we'll all be dead, and this ship will continue its hunt across the galaxy. Humanity won't survive it." With that, he turned back to the console, his mind working at lightning speed. His enhanced cognitive abilities allowed him to process data faster than most, and he scanned the alien technology, trying to find some way to interface with it. The symbols that had once appeared random now seemed to form a pattern, and Kepler realized with a shock that they were not just symbols, they were instructions. The alien language wasn't just a form of communication, it was a key. The ship had been waiting for someone to activate it, to unlock its power. Kepler's fingers flew over the console surface, pressing the glowing symbols in the exact sequence his mind had deciphered. The walls around them trembled as the ship seemed to react to his movements. The creature, sensing the disturbance, let out a guttural roar from the hallway, but Kepler didn't pause. A blinding flash of light filled the room as the core's energy began to intensify. The entire ship seemed to groan as its systems engaged, coming to life in a way Kepler hadn't anticipated. But then, the pulse of energy shifted. Instead of focusing on the creature, it seemed to redirect toward the core itself, its energy flowing back into the very heart of the vessel. Kepler's heart pounded in his chest as he watched the ship's interior begin to change. The walls, which had once been dark and twisted, now shifted into something more organic, more alive. The ship wasn't just a weapon, it was a living organism, and it was responding to his command. Suddenly, the creature appeared in the doorway, its glowing blue eyes locked onto Kepler with a fierce, predatory gaze. It was not a beast, but something far more complex, a guardian of the ship, perhaps, or something far worse. It screeched, its monstrous form lunging toward them with inhuman speed. Kepler acted instinctively, grabbing a nearby piece of debris and throwing it toward the creature. The impact caused the beast to stagger, but it quickly recovered, its claws tearing through the air as it came at him again. "We need to finish this," Voss yelled, her voice frantic as she aimed her weapon at the creature. Kepler's mind raced. The ship's core was absorbing more energy, growing stronger with every passing second. But they couldn't let the creature stop them now. "Voss, get to the console." "I'll hold it off," Kepler shouted. His voice was steady, but inside, he could feel the weight of their situation pressing down on him. This was their last chance. Voss hesitated for a moment, but the urgency in Kepler's voice was clear. She dashed toward the console, her weapon raised, ready to fight if the creature came any closer. Kepler turned to face the creature, his pulse quickening. The air crackled with tension as he and the beast locked eyes. There was no escape, no more running. This was it. The creature lunged once more, but Kepler was ready. His enhanced reflexes allowed him to sidestep the creature's claws, and he slammed his fist into its side, using his strength to push it back. The creature hissed in rage, but Kepler wasn't about to let it stop him. "Come on," he muttered under his breath, focusing on the energy from the core that was now flooding the room. The ship was alive, and its power was within his reach. With a final, calculated move, Kepler activated the sequence he had discovered on the console. A surge of energy shot through the room, and the ship shuddered violently. The creature let out one last, deafening screech before its body convulsed and fell to the ground, lifeless. Kepler took a step back, panting heavily as he surveyed the now silent room. The ship had stopped trembling, and the eerie hum had ceased. The walls no longer glowed, and the strange, sentient presence of the vessel had faded. Voss approached the console slowly, her weapon still raised. She looked to Kepler, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Did we do it?" Kepler nodded slowly, his body aching from the battle. "I think so. The core's destabilizing. The ship's systems are shutting down." The energy that had once surged through the ship was now dissipating, and the dark, living presence of the vessel was beginning to crumble. The core's power was being siphoned off, its ancient force no longer in control. "We've done it," Voss said, breathing a sigh of relief. Kepler allowed himself a moment of exhaustion. They had survived. The creature was dead, and the ship was shutting down. But they both knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was still vast, and the ancient forces that had once controlled it were far from gone. The Zalrek's invasion had been only the first step in a much larger conflict, and humanity's role in this galactic war was far from over. "We'll need to report this to the fleet," Kepler said, his voice filled with determination. "There's more out there, and humanity's not going to stop fighting." Together, they left the core room, the once dreaded ship now silent behind them, as they made their way back to the boarding pods. The universe had just learned a valuable lesson. Humanity was not to be underestimated. The human vanguard had risen, and it would take more than ancient creatures and forgotten weapons to extinguish their fight.